I was watching one of the Candace Owens episode and something caught my attention. I want to play that video for you now and then I'm going to talk about it.
TPUS Faith, who started to lead these events that they were having. So who is Lance Wallnau? Well, he is one of these NAR preachers, like I said, who came up with their 7 mountain mandate, okay? Charlie began to become very interested in the 7 mountain mandate. I would say like he became mesmerized by the 7 mountain mandate. He became friends with Lance Wallnau. I'm going to let you listen to Lance himself describe this 7 mountain mandate in his own words.
Hi, I'm Lance Wallnau. I want to talk to you for a moment about this concept called the 7M mandate. In reality, it started with a conversation I had in the year 2000. I had been talking to Lauren Cunningham, who's the founder of Youth with a Mission. And Lauren was sharing with me about a conversation he had had with Bill Bright. The two of them were visited, actually, by the Lord within the same 24 hours. And God spoke to them and said they had a message to give the other man. And the message was that there are 7 molders of culture, or 7 world kingdoms, and that he who could take those kingdoms could take the harvest of nations. Now, this illustration is the way I see it. I look at it this way. I see those 7 molders of culture as being the religion mountain, as a metaphor for something you've got to take or climb. Then we have education, we could say, family. These are in no particular order of importance. They all represent the forces that shape societies and nations. Government, media, art, which is the entertainment mountain, and business, which is where we have the economics mountain happening also. Now, these 7 fields of influence are very powerful, so powerful, in fact, that he who occupies the top of those mountains can literally shape the agenda that forms nations. The foundation of the prosperity of nations is going to have to be the teaching of Jesus. The good news is you can do that covert or you can do that overt. You can be, like I always say, you could actually be following that thing from Jehovah Rophi, Jehovah Nisi, Jehovah Sitkanu, or Jehovah Sneaky. Because God has a way of getting into positions, companies, businesses, nations, and communities before the devil even knows what got in there. Because the gospel is bigger than just the church mountain. It's the gospel that covers the whole earth.
So what he's describing there and what they believe is that there are new prophets, there are new apostles, they have this 7 mountain mandate. And when he is speaking about covertly, he means that, okay? This is a philosophy of infiltration. He says, but before people even know, boom, he describes it as a devil, before people know, boom, everyone around them is actually working for a higher purpose. Man, I gotta say, kind of sort of reminds me of what happened to Charlie, right? This is kind of where this is going. Turning Point Faith, everywhere that I'm investigating, Turning Point Faith keeps coming up. These characters keep coming up, and there's a pattern that I'm noticing. A lot of these so Lance fits the pattern well. And before I tell you how he is very connected to Turning Point USA Faith, I do want to also be clear that Frank Turek stands out because he flat out acknowledged on one of his podcasts that NAR was a cult, actually darker than a cult. Take a listen to what Frank Turek said about NAR.
So technically a group, and NAR stands for what again?
I'm sorry, the New Apostolic Reformation.
That's Bill Johnson out there in California, Northern California. We'll talk about him in a minute. But Word of Faith movement, they don't necessarily add, subtract, multiply, or divide, but their hermeneutic, the way they interpret the scriptures, is aberrant. Yes. And they interpret the scriptures in such a way that their practice follows this aberrant theology that they have, and they wind up doing things that are more New Agey or more even occult-like than they are Christian.
Be a cult, and that is correct. Now, Frank Turek, this didn't stop him. It didn't make him go warn Charlie about this in any way, as these people began to infiltrate his organization. And Lance Wallnau worked his way into Turning Point USA.
What caught my attention about this particular clip is Lance Wallnau, when he was talking about the new revelation that he has about the 7 mountains or the 7 pillars. and whoever is at the top of that, at the top of those mountains, can change the agenda of nations with being at the top, with controlling these 7 pillars of the 7 mountains. He's talking about something about man. That what he's talking about, and when you listen to God in the Bible, when they told us, do not listen to any new gossip. And these people keep coming up with something new, something new, something new. Jesus has already put his people on assignment, which is to go out and spread the good news. That's it. He didn't say go out and take over the world, go out and conquer the world. Go out and spread the gospel. What it sounds like Lance is trying to do is get a group of people that he's in control of and put them in positions. Now they're controlling that position. That's no different than what they have been doing all the time. There's nothing new in this world. Just like when you had the Knight Templars, how they was going out doing war, it became political, it became about money. That's what he's doing. That is what Lance is doing. It's becoming political and it's becoming about money. Who can control what? Not for the good of God, but for the good of whoever's in that organization, who's ever at the top of that organization. They're doing everything to separate Christians from Christ. And like I said, and like I will continue to say, I don't care who said they are a Christian. I don't care who say, how spiritual they sing, how spiritual they talk, how much Bible they talk. If you test the spirit against Scripture, do it align. If it do not align, do not follow it. If it do not align, do not be distracted by it. What he's saying is about his agenda, the 7 pillars, a new teaching, a new revelation. That's not what scriptures talk about. If anybody teaches you anything other than what we taught you, it's the devil. Don't listen to it. Don't follow it. Stick to what the Bible is saying. This is why it's important that you read and study the Bible. This is why it's important to pray for discernment. Keep praying for discernment. Stay close to God. That's why I always end my clips with saying, stay focused on Jesus. Everything else is more or less a distraction. You have to, of course, we're going to run into these different things, but that's why it's very important to know how to test the spirit. When somebody say they have a new revelation, that should be a red flag, because there is no new revelation. Because what you have to think about also, if the God that you're worshiping is the God that created this earth, if that God is the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning of the end, he knows everything. Why would he have to create a new revelation? Why he couldn't put that in the scripture? Because that's saying that he didn't know it was going to happen, so he had to wait till later to create some new revelation. He could have put that in the Bible, and everything could have been in alignment, saying this is what, about the 7 pillars. Men are greedy. Men want to be empowered. Men want to be God, and they're coming up with all these new revelations. And they're using the name God. They're using spirituality. They're using the name Christian to hide behind in order to push their agenda. Don't fall for it. And then you see with the other clip, they was talking about that organization. I think it was NARS, which is his organization, Lance organization, is a cult. He's into the new spirituality. He's a cult. So that makes me, like I said, I spoke about this before with Candace. There's some things I agree with Candace on. There's some things I don't agree with Candace on. And then, like I said, this right here is about God. And I always said that I'm on God's side. I fight for the truth because Jesus is the truth. So if you want to go out there and spread the good news, you're going to stick to what Jesus said. There's nothing new that needs to be added. You're going to point people to Jesus, not to yourself, not to your organization, but to Jesus. And that's why I come on here to defend scripture, to defend Jesus. And so I don't have any hate for anyone, but when you're speaking wrong when it comes to scripture and you could lead people away from God, you could lead people to hell, I'm going to say, no, that's not right. This is the right direction. Listen to what they're saying and compare it to scripture. And so it seemed like a lot has went haywire since Charlie Kirk passed away. I'm not getting into conspiracy theories because, like I said, what he's saying and what the scriptures say are two different things. And how he's a part of Turning Point, I don't know. And what direction is he now trying to take Turning Point that Charlie's not here? It's sad that Charlie's not here, but everyone know what Charlie was thinking, know what Charlie wanted, know what Charlie's heart was, and Charlie is not in any position to say, no, yes, this is what I meant, this is what I was saying, this is the direction I was going in. And that's the sad part about everything like this. But as always, stay focused on Jesus.